Are you saving all you can with Safeway for You? You may already know that you can save on groceries. But did you know that you can save up to $1 per gallon on gas at participating Exxon and Mobil stations? It's true. Up to $1 per gallon. Fill up at an Exxon or Mobil station today. Maximum gas reward is $1 per gallon up to 25 gallons on a single fill-up at participating Exxon and Mobil stations. Other restrictions and exclusions apply. For complete details, visit safeway.com/rewards.
Hello and welcome, my fellow superfans, to the 7th edition of No Small Questions, the Q&A show with the cast of No Small Roles. I'm Question Master Sam Oakes, and sitting in the virtual hot seats tonight, we have a pair of total legends. Join me as we peek under the mask and hopefully unravel some of Gaius's many, many secrets. That's right, we have the oh-so-handsome Chris Watts in the Zoom chat.
You filthy flirt.
Oh, he's so handsome. He's so handsome.
Oh, you absolute tease, you.
Oh, you deserve it. And filling the other screen...
Should I go?
This no, I'm getting to you, David. Settle down.
Okay. I'll wait my turn.
Stay here and watch, David. That's all you need to do.
No, I think I will go.
And filling the other screen in this call is the player's handbook himself. There would be no show without the madness that thrives in this man's noggin. Our crafty DM, David Knight. Hey guys.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I'm really excited for this, especially since I've seen some of the questions that are lying ahead. There are some really good ones and there are some doozies as well that you'll have to think about, but we'll get to that in a moment. We also have standing by in this Zoom chat, we have a collection of our Patreon subscribers, and we'll be hearing some questions, hopefully directly from them, a little bit later on in the show. Now, before we kick off, this is your spoiler alert. Spoiler alert! We will be discussing events right up to and including episode 35. So, if you haven't yet had the pleasure, this is your last chance to hit the pause button and go catch up. Okay, right. You've been warned. Let's get stuck in. Are you guys ready for your first question?
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do this thing.
Let's dive right in. Okay, so the first question is for David. This is at Emily MJ Knight, who has asked, how do you go about designing the puzzles in recent episodes?
Ooh.
Was it a Crystal Maze inspired? And defo gave Crystal Maze vibes.
First up, that's definitely my little sister. So, hi, Emily.
I was going to say, I recognise the knight.
Yep.
That's cute.
All the way up in Scotland at the moment, so lovely to hear from you. How did I go about it? First of all, I work in an escape room. So...
this makes sense.
Yeah, straight away. I feel like that explains almost everything you need to know. Up until now, we've not really had any, explicit puzzles in the show. I think the closest that we got to an explicit puzzle was the notes in Kral's Tower.
Yeah.
Sort of piecing those together, putting them in the right order.
And we all know how well we did with that, everyone.
Yeah. Everything else has been a narrative problem. So in setting up the Wingthrups as these paragons of intelligence, the joy of deciding that they test people in a rigorous test before they're accepted fully into the family and to see the inner sanctum, as it were, was just a really fun idea and not something that I wanted to miss. The amount of puzzles for the maze in particular, I maybe went overboard.
Not at all. No. I would disagree with that statement. I don't think you went overboard at all.
There was a lot of thinking cut. We were like, are these episodes going to be 45 minutes long? But everyone really managed to keep it slick and keep character action going through the puzzle solving, which is just something I love about these players anyway. You can put anything in front of them and it's a character choice and a character solving it rather than just the puzzle or the problem. But yeah, basically in the whole maze, the point of the puzzle was to try and test them in every way that the Wingthrups thought a person was valuable. So each of the tests has got a hint towards something that the Wingthrups make or something that they value in some way.
Yeah.
Obviously, they make wands. So having an entire puzzle based around producing a wand with limited capability.
So
like,
cool.
yeah, like it entirely made sense. The actual designing of the puzzles, essentially, it was a lot of conversations with my wife, being like, "What do I do? I've got this kind of puzzle, I got this kind of puzzle, and I still need 4 more to make a full cube." And I'm gonna hold my hands up. She gave me a lot of ideas, so you can blame her for the trauma that I inflicted upon you all.
I like that. It's a team thing.
Yeah,
And you both worked together to try and make rooms that would kill everyone if they got it wrong.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Every single room had to have some kind of penalty for being stupid.
Yeah, I mean, literally.
From like the
right
Wingdrop's
off the
point of
bat.
view. Yeah.
I even stole that for a one-shot that I DM'd David, the very first one, with the table, and it nearly killed the players.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun just to see the absolute sheer panic on their face when I was like, the walls are moving 5 more feet closer, and they just could not clock it. I think I was even signposting really obviously at some points, and they were saying like, one person was saying the right thing, and everyone else was like, no, it's not going to be that obvious. And it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you're going to die.
Yeah.
And there was a rule of 3 with these as well. It's kind of like both with the walls closing in, and there was another one with the poison filling up.
Yeah.
It's
The
like,
acid.
okay,
yeah.
you get this wrong a few times, and you're out.
Yeah.
Which is a bit crazy when you're like, how would you have dealt with it if then they hadn't figured out that
If
whole
it
thing with the
hadn't-
table leg?
there were a lot of plans, essentially, like backup plans, just in case. Luckily, they survived those moments, so I didn't have to use any of the backup plans. But yeah, there were a lot of like, oh, if it all does go wrong, we can try this and see if the narrative can still move forwards.
I mean, say they got crushed, you could just have an arm, stuff that's created by the wing thrower. You could rebuild Gaius, give him a bit of extra face.
Oh.
Yeah. That's 100% something that they do. Yeah,
Amazing. I'm really looking forward to the end though, where they're all in the big, the crystal dome, and they're trying to catch the money.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To the Aztec zone.
To be fair, I do love the Crystal Maze. Like any of those, like we're getting really into Taskmaster at the moment. Literally started watching it from series 1 last week, and we're already up to series 4. Just the like, here is a challenge, but you've got the open possibility of solving it in a variety of ways. Love that. Absolutely love that.
Well, I can't wait to see the next ones as well, because I think this is going to come out just after episode 36.
Yeah.
Everybody else is going to know, but I'm really excited to see what these last couple of rooms are all about.
Yeah, so that's the thing. You guys have heard up to the
Pokemon.
lovingly dubbed the Pokemon, the Hedgehog room.
Oh.
Yeah. And all of that.
The feels.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hands on hearts going on in the Zoom, I can see.
Just sorry to jump in, but that room was really trying. Not in like how to solve it, but actually it was really interesting at how I recognized how I play D&D and also how Gaius perceives like the world. Like there's it's one of my favorite quotes ever in this whole show, actually, because it just came out of the blue. Guy was like, why would we interview a rat about what's going on in a laboratory? Like, why would we care about that point of view? And then Juna's just like, well, I would ask that question. And then it just completely made sense. And I was like, oh, damn, like, this is how Guy perceives the world. Like, how do I use things? And then Juna was just like...
It is in his blood.
Well, yeah, I know, but it really, it did shake me. And it shook all of us as a cast. And,
well, it is very interesting because as David was saying earlier about like, oh, these are the things, the skills that the Wingthruts would find useful, that they value. In the same way, what they're doing to those animals doesn't really matter. They are, like you say, lab rats. They're there for that purpose.
Yeah.
Which, was just such a...
It's cruel.
Particularly heard it from Daryl.
Yeah, well, that's like... Yeah, Enkidu, I feel like, was the character that saw the moral quandary in that puzzle. And, like, obviously that was put there on purpose. Everybody else was very much in puzzle mode. Like, they were kind of aware of that moral question. But they were like, well, we need to solve it to, like, get out. And it took Enkidu and Daryl stopping everyone and saying, look at what we're doing. Is there is there a better way to be doing this? Should we be doing this? Should we proceed?
Yeah.
And it's the same for the listeners as well, because, I'm speaking purely on my own behalf here, but I was thinking, like, okay, how do I solve this room?
Mm-hmm.
And then it took Daryl saying that as Enkidu for me to be like, oh yeah, there's a lot more going on here with ethics.
Yeah. I can't remember because we did stop for about 10 minutes to sort of discuss some of the morals, and some of that made it into the episode, but not all of it. So I'm not sure whether or not it is in the episode or not.
Oh no, I'm going to have to go back and listen to it.
No, we had a very raw conversation about it.
We did. We had a very frank and honest conversation, which was brilliant, and I felt like it really like landed it all with everybody as perform and brought everyone slightly out of that puzzle solving mode. Having everyone stopping and fully realize the ethics of the situation, it made them realize that the cruelty of the Wingthrups as well. Up until that point, they'd only met Myra and Ferrocene, who were both children and both very nice.
Yeah, and the only time we'd seen the elementals was when they had been like mixed together after they've been converted.
Yeah.
I imagined in my head these. I remember early on in the episode being like, this is a weird part of the country where suddenly these like lava monsters and lightning fiends are like cruising around the countryside, when obviously that's not the case. I was seeing like the end of it. I was seeing the cake baked, this demonic, horrible cake, when actually, like you say, we didn't see the side of it, that we didn't see how the sausage was being made.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, is this a cake or a sausage?
I don't know. It's a
Right.
it's a sausage cake. I don't know. It's either one way or another. It's a really cruel thing.
It's a cruel thing to have done. Yeah, yeah. And so I feel like that not only like made them ask those moral questions and the ethical questions of animal cruelty and things like that, but also gave them an insight into the Wingthrups' position on it all.
Yeah,
I think Daryl had sort of picked up on some of the Wingthrup cruelty earlier on as well, when he was he has a conversation, I can't remember with who, but he basically like airs his doubts of, should we be worrying about the Wingthrups, should we be trusting them getting in because of the way that they treat intelligence? Like, to them, someone who's not intelligent is not worthy. Is that the line already? So then I feel like this almost like escalated it, like that point for a lot of for everybody else.
Okay, amazing.
They're bad. They're bad people is essentially the whole point of the situation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the next step, because it kind of sounds like Enkidu might have definitely made up his mind where his allegiances are going to lie on the other side of this thing. Amazing. That was question one. So
does that answer the question?
I think so. I think we segued into something beautiful, but yeah, really nice. Let's have another question, which is themed. This one's for Chris this time, from Ashley Hooch Dangerfield. How do you think Guy feels knowing that he could be related to Orin?
Well, first off, that was a fun puzzle that did not need to be a puzzle.
Walk up, say hello, they'll let you in. But, all right, yeah.
As a character, how does Guy feel about Orin being a potential family member? Well, Guy actually has a very traditional view of family, and that family, is meant to have your back. Family is, the collective, and that's something that he's always been instilled in. That has always been instilled in him since an early age. The most important thing in life is family. But that's his traditions, whereas his experiences have warped that and forced him to have to sort of reflect on that. And the idea that Orin, who is already, sort of like, quote unquote, already kind of a family member, it kind of feels right. And it kind of, I think for Guy, it's like, oh, yeah, that's what that is. That's knowing that somebody is, I think by this point, Guy's worked out that Orin's a pretty cool dude. Like, as in he's in terms of his like morals and stuff, he trusts him. Yeah, he trusts him. And I think that it fits that he's family in Guy's eyes.
Yeah, because I think it was Orin who got the vision of Guy's mum. And that whole thing about, the guys playing the music for his mum and, how she... So actually, Orin was the first person to get Guy to open up even slightly, that has basically paved the way for what we're seeing now. So it is kind of nice, like, full circle moment to be like, oh, okay, they are related in some way. And I be really interested in asking Ben as well how this affects Orin's kind of standing now within the group, if he knows that somebody is related to him. Because I remember in another No Small Questions we were talking about, Orin is much the like cut and run. And I wonder whether like the blood dynamic will kind of change that. It'll be really interesting.
Give him an excuse to
Yeah.
And I'm sure Gaius wants another brother after what's going on with his other sister.
No
words on that.
I can neither confirm nor deny. However, what I will say is, definitely, like we've hit it on the head already that like he has got a very challenged view on family from what he originally had. So the idea of loyalty for him is a very difficult thing for him to process at the moment. And I think it's like people need to be worthy of his trust, and I definitely think that Orin is that, and I think this group is definitely that. I do think at times, sort of, this is going into a bit more of what Guy's sort of going through constantly, is he's always thinking, okay, but when's it going to end? Okay, but where's the escape route in this? You know what I mean? So, he's always got when he walks into a building, he's always thinking like, where's the exit just in case something goes wrong and I have to skedaddle. So in that case, he's kind of like Orin as well. But,
I was going to say, I think definitely a relative.
Yeah. I think he's definitely just. I think he sees it as an exciting thing. I think he's less bothered about the Wingthorpe thing, and he's just more excited about the Orin thing. Is how he views it, I guess.
Oh my god, I'm related to Aggie.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, oh my gosh, this guy can do some cool things, and he's not a jerk who's going to steal my gold. So yeah, okay, I'll hang around with him.
So good. So good. He's the chatty version, and then Orin is the quiet version. There'll be the two siblings that complete each other. Oh my god!
Yeah, I feel like Guy and Orin are like those two cousins in like the family reunion, where like there's like the young quiet one, and like there's a slightly older like brash loud one, and the young one's always like, oh please, just I will go with any member of the family, but just not Guy. Because he will keep me up all night talking and blah blah blah, and I'll just like come in and give him a big old bear hug and just be like, oh my gosh, what did you do this summer? I did this, and Orin's just like, I just want to read.
I just want to make things. Yeah.
I just want to sit over here, thanks.
It's like you just walked into the room and broken my like Lego set. I was working really hard on making a goose, and now it's just like ruined. Guy, your bag's on my foot. Oh.
Guy taking up 3 seats in the back of the car. Orin trying to like sit in one corner and just like, can you stop taking up my space?
Oh, that is a really cute mental image.
Can you stop playing your guitar so loud? I'm trying to read.
Yeah. Or just Orin just be like, it's really, I really like that you've got this hobby, Guy. Like, it sounds really nice, but could you just please?
Not yet. Yeah.
I have this mental image now of them both sitting next to each other and like as like toddlers, and they give Guy his first kids. Like little lute or little ukulele or something, and then they go over to, and Orin's just there like playing with building blocks and like building them into fan art, please, Karen. That'd be great.
There's definitely a one shot in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, where they just suddenly become like, what's that sort of Japanese sort of craze where it's like everything's dressed
Chibi.
like, was it?
Chibis. Yeah.
Chibis.
Absolutely. Definitely. Oh my gosh, there needs to be a one shot where they just become chibis. They're like cute little,
where they're like cute
chubby things.
Like toddler versions of themselves. Yeah, almost.
Definitely. Oh my gosh.
Chibis in the crystal maze.
Let's do it.
Love it. Okay. You heard it here first, everyone. Okay, amazing. Let's move on to another question for David. This is from Mike C., who's asked, how did you come up with the idea of giving wands power sources?
Ooh. It was a few things. First of all, I'm pretty sure, and Sam, you're pretty hot up on the rules, so you can confirm with me.
Yeah.
You're pretty savvy. Wands, I'm pretty sure you can only really use them if you're a spellcaster.
Yeah, unless they have charges in them.
Right.
Is normally the thing. It's like, oh, this is a wand of this. You can spend 3 charges a day or something like that, or a week, and then they recharge after a week.
So my thinking was that if there was like a magical power source that would remove the point of you needing to be a spellcaster and using your own power sources, as it were. So these wands could be handed around to anybody, which is why I think it's really sort of a good example is that Gwendolyn has got her wand of fairy fire, and she can still use it. So for that, it was a kind of shorthand, and it was just in a narrative way, another way to set up the elemental batteries, sort of give everybody a hint of how the Wingthrops make things, that they are like tied to these batteries, to these power sources, without it being a dangerous thing at that point. It's like, literally, here's a small example of it. Next time you see it, it's going to be a bit bigger. Time after that, it's going to be an even bigger problem. So yeah, I can't pinpoint like the exact thing that was like, oh, that's a great idea, or like the point of inspiration. But that was the purpose of giving the wands power sources. The only slight retcon that I have made is that when I put the wands in the Vondel study, at that point I hadn't planned for them to be Wingthrop wands.
Oh yeah.
But it's just a really handy thing that Gaia said stolen some. So, or it's stolen just the one, and then they picked up another wand or whatever on the way. So it was like, oh, it makes sense that like this is something that the Wingthrops make. I decided that later on. So of course the Vondels, as like a show of wealth, have gotten their hands on these like the fanciest ones.
Oh, that's really clever. Because it was Myra that picked up on it, wasn't? She was like, "Oh, that's one of ours."
That's one of ours. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's the only thing that I actually decided after the fact. But it was such a nice, neat narrative tie-in that there was nothing not to do it. Basically, there were no bad reasons for tying those things together.
It kind of makes Orin's sustainable battery of like pearls and like his various gizmos and gadgets even more exciting.
Yeah.
Because even Myra's like, oh, you do that? That's weird. That's kind of cool. And when Myra gets excited, like we all as listeners are like, oh, this must be like new technology for them to consider, like, that there isn't a cost to like an organism or a living thing, to do magic.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing as well. So it kind of feels like, and I mean, that's the whole point, I guess, of the Artificer class is to make it feel like, to give that creativity to the player, but also to give that chance of putting a character in the world that can do new stuff that no one else has seen before.
Yeah, to literally be the inventor and like, make those decisions about what it is that powers their creations, what it is that like pushes the technology forward of the world.
Can I ask, actually, I mean, this isn't actually a question in there. Would you have gone down the battery powered ones and the very much like Tinker side, the Artificer side of the world, if you hadn't had one in the party? Was that like inspired by having Ben on the team playing this character, or did you already have an idea when you dreamed up El Timpir that this might happen?
Yeah, I think it was partly inspired by Ben's choice of being an Artificer. I mean, I really like the whole a world with magic hasn't necessarily gotten to like our level of modern technology, but I do often find it a bit weird that like in a lot of fantasy games you've got like everyday common folk who are literally tilling the land with their hands, living next door to a wizard who can make plants grow at the drop of a hat. It kind of doesn't make sense. So I do like having the sort of magic built into everyday life, and in a lot of ways then that opens up like technological options.
Yeah.
Whether or not the Wingthrops in particular would have been like this artificery, I don't know. I think when I made some decisions that Orin, for instance, was tied to the family, that of course it made a lot more sense for them to be similar, mostly so that everyone could have that debate of like, well, that's too obvious. He's an artificer. They're artificers. Like, clearly they're not related. And it's like, no, the fun of it is that they are.
I've got a quick question, just a quick one for David. Now I'm super curious because you talked about like the genesis of El Timpir, and I'm just super curious. Like, what was the start of the map? Like, what was when you first thought of this continent? Like, what was the first character or geographical site or culture, or just what was like the spark that was like, oh, this could be in this place?
That's quite tricky.
Do you go through a map, or do you go through like culture or the experiences you want the players to have? Like what was the first? Yeah, basically that was it. Like what was the first like idea
First idea
to occupy El Timpir.
Like the Big Bang.
The whole world map was drawn years and years ago for the campaign that I play, the long running 7 or 8 year, however long it is, campaign that I play with Vicky. Like, sort of, because they've traveled a lot of that world, I drew out the whole world in case they wanted to go anywhere, but I didn't like populate it. But in El Timpir, the first place was Dram.
Oh, which we haven't been to.
Not been to. I ran that as a one shot for my family, again, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. And they were criminals for the Hex, and that's where the Hex started. So El Timpir for me has always been tainted with like Hex activity and like underhandedness. When it came to like planning the story of the campaign, I was just I still am. I'm like, the effects of colonialism was really like the point that I want to kind of make across this entire thing. Is that like with the elves coming in, pushing the Orcosians out, pushing the native people out, there's already a struggle there. But then even in amongst the people that, like the Aelish Empire, that being divided between, am I going to be sort of join this meritocracy where I've got no hope in finding a place in the system? Or am I going to go off by myself? Like basically the Aeland Dravain divide, again, is like another sort of effect and like repercussion of this initial colonialization of the place. That's basically the starting point for the world, is that there is a national trauma that has had an ongoing effect, and even thousands of years later is still having an effect on people's attitudes in the region.
People still sanitizing their hands.
Yeah. To take it to a slightly, more culturally dissective place. That's the point of making the place as it is, was to like investigate what those cultures would look like.
Yeah. Cool.
That's so good as well, because you can keep building on that. And when we get to season 2 of No Small Roles, we will have even more places that you can then explore and be like, actually, okay, we've done it on this continent. Maybe there's another place over here that we can explore. And that's really exciting. I didn't realize that the actual lore of it all that you'd created has been around for so long, but it makes sense because of how in the world you are, like, and how it's so, you are so confident with this world that we're like, okay, it's this. Yeah, cool. You're imagining it for us. If that makes sense. I don't think any of that made sense, but it did to me.
I understand what you're saying. Sure.
Let's move on. So, question number 4. Yes, that's right. It's question number 4, and we've been chatting for half an hour. I love it.
Okay, sorry. We'll try and do some quick fire.
Yeah, we'll do quick fire.
No, I'm really enjoying this. I'm just sorry if we don't get to your question, guys. It's just because these guys are so interesting. I'm sorry.
We keep veering off into other subjects. Sorry.
But we do actually have another voice that is going to join the chat right now. It is superfan Pippa, who has a question for David. So, Pip, over to you.
Hi, David.
Hi.
My question for you is, does having sole control over the finished score make it easier or more difficult compared with working alongside a musical director or a conductor, for example?
Great question.
That is a brilliant question. Does it make it easier? I think it obviously doesn't lessen the workload, but I am a tad bit of a control freak when it comes to the music. So in that sense, easier, that I can just do it and set, like, get it all done, volume check it and stuff myself and go, yes, this is exactly how I want it to be. So yeah, easier. I do think if having someone else on the team, it would be perhaps quicker. Having someone else to like bounce ideas off of. The only thing is that quite often I do the music. I start work on the music on the Monday and the episode comes out on Sunday. So if I were working with someone else, that they would have to always be available to my whims. Because I'd start writing something, send it over to them, and I'd need feedback straight away. So yeah, I don't know. To be honest, even in a lot of the other work that I've done, music work-wise, I've not often worked with a huge amount of other people. Obviously, we've had some fun way back in uni. Me and Pippa wrote some stuff together. Pippa is an excellent orchestrator. If anybody wants to hire her, please do.
I did think this was an application.
Is that what this question is?
Yeah. I think it was leading.
Yeah. Yeah, so genuinely, it comes down to me just needing complete control over everything and the speed that I need it done. When I go back to my day job, who knows if I'm going to be able to handle it by myself? Let's not think about that yet. But yeah, for the moment, it's perhaps easier. I feel like that's where I'm falling in line. It is difficult, but perhaps easier.
That's really ambiguous, but great. Thank you so much for the question, Pippa.
I have a confused look on my face.
Yeah. I think
I'm still doubting myself in what I'm saying.
But I'm sure when he goes back to work, that's Pippa when you get to step in, save the day, come up with all the musical scores.
Yeah, when David suddenly, has a freak accident.
Oh yeah. That's when all of the files are coming your way, Pip. You might need to download Ableton first because all of the files are on Ableton. But please be prepared.
Thank you very much. I was going to say when you finally get round to having all your scores performed by a live orchestra, I'm totally down with being your conductor.
Oh yes, please. Oh yes.
Yes.
Rounds of applause coming from the other patrons.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am on board.
Mostly, again, because I'm terrified of actual musicians. So if you could... They're looking at my scores going, that's impossible to play, Dave. I can't sing this. That's the thing I get back from a lot of my casts. Who can sing that? Where's the breath? There is no breath.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Pippa. Okay, on to another question. This one is from me. I've written it all down. This is a question for you, Chris. I'm going to try and read it I don't know why I've written an entire paragraph here, but I'm just going to read it out.
Excellent. How many marks do I get for this question?
Depends how you answer it.
Oh, okay.
Show you're working. We've had some pretty interesting revelations with Gaius' backstory recently, namely being an untested Wingthrup, and his sister Treya potentially being a high-ranking member of the Hex. So these moments, well, I'm going to be honest, they kind of sounded like they surprised you when they happened. So I was wondering, how much of Guy's backstory did you plan, like yourself, before the game started? And how much of the information did you leave to the DM's discretion? So basically, is this all fresh news to you, Chris?
So, actually, I know Guy's story quite extensively. It's funny, really, because I tend to play with, when it comes to D&D characters, I've played with, knowing every inch of their backstory, and then having a character where I'm like, I know this, and then the rest is, what we discover from the character. And I've enjoyed both. But with Guy, David and I had a big, deep discussion about, where Guy's family are from, who they are, what roles they play, what's occurred in Guy's life to bring him to this point. So I knew exactly where Guy had been and what he'd been doing and how he'd been surviving up until the start of the campaign. How it's been revealed has totally been down to complete surprise, or it's been from really reluctant Guy being forced to tell the truth or to quickly lie and then get caught up in those lies. And I think those have genuinely been moments when I have been the most nervous, because it's been wonderful moments when it's been Orin just being I saw this in a dream about your mum, and Guy suddenly the hairs on the back of his head, on the back of his neck go.
The whole back of his head.
The whole back of his head. Basically, he is just he's just woo. And my favorite one is that it seems to be Gwen at the moment, who every time there's just something about Gwen. There's something about Grace where it's who's going to take watch? And then Guy will be yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then Gwen goes,
I'll do it with
I'll
you.
do it as well with you. And then suddenly Guy goes, you know what? I'm actually quite tired right now.
You see, there's something that lights up in Grace's eyes every time Chris says.
Every time.
It's just the gentle pressure.
Oh, I'm going to learn something else. Ooh, here we go.
Yeah, and I can see it coming a mile off, but I know that I just can't say no to Grace. And there is a way that Grace just talks with Gwen, and because Gwen's been with Guy the longest, to Guy, Gwen is very much like a sister. Yeah, she's very much like, they are thick as thieves, like they've been through a lot, and Gwen has been the person who's spoken to Guy the softest in over like X amount of years. In a long time. And I've only just thought of that now, that Gwen speaks the softest to Guy than anyone's ever spoken to Guy for a very, very long time. And I think that like sort of cuts through all the bullshit. It's not a harsh word. Yeah. It's not a knife to the throat. It's just a soft, quiet concern that is not, which I am not expecting, which is the answer, I guess, to that.
It's a very like kind of like blue sky kind of thing, isn't it? The way that she presents it to Gaius of like, it's okay, I'm here to talk whenever you're ready, but is this something that you want to talk about?
Yeah.
And it was very interesting the way that Guy then was like, no, that was a lie. My sister's name was Treya. And like opened up that door. It was his choice. He didn't have to cast suggestion on himself.
No.
As we've seen before, works when you're telling the truth to Gwendolyn. But yeah, it's kind of those walls are starting to come down with you. But that is interesting. It's clearly just good acting from you, Chris, that I'm like, oh, he does. I kind of got this idea that you were like, oh, I've created this masked bard, but actually I don't want to create a backstory for him. He has somewhat of a face. He has a mask. He has a lute and a sword that has so far no explanation to it.
That's
and
one thing.
David, you can play with the rest of it.
Yeah, actually, you know what?
I got.
That is, to be fair, that is the one part of his story that I have no clue about. It's the sword. It was literally the decision for me to have that sword. Everyone's like, oh, the sword. And when I whipped out the sword in like the first, like, the Rondell arc, I was like, get out the sword. And everyone was like, oh, here comes the sword. Here comes the sword. It's going to be the epicness. And I was just like, oh, and I do something. And it failed, obviously, straight away. Yeah. And then someone was just like, what happened? And then I just revealed straight away, I literally got this sword from a card game because I was like, I don't want Guy to have like epically awesome like stuff. I want him to be on the back foot because he has been like living on the road. He has been stealing, thrifting, getting anything that's not been bolted down. And then on my character sheet it was like, you have one weapon, you have a weapon, what is it going to be? And I was like, I don't want him to be like a bard with a rapier. Like he knows exactly what he's doing straight away. I know my skills. He doesn't know his skills. He's been only playing for a year. So I was like, give him a freaking longsword because that would be such a cumbersome thing. So the fact he had it on his back, and I remember like the first time that I described Guy, I said he's got this longsword on his back. And I remember Daryl being like, ooh, that's interesting. And I was like, haha, joke's on you. I have no clue how to use this thing.
It's not interesting at all.
So, and it's kind of like, you know what's funny with the sword? It's like, I'm so tempted to sell it. I keep thinking about selling it. But then there's just a part of me, I'm just like, oh, what if there's a really cool thing about this sword? But every time I keep going to a vendor or something like that, they're always just like, yeah, it's a pretty good sword. might just be a sword, but I don't want to give it away. And then suddenly, like, David's just like, so that sword you gave away was like, you know, the ancient ancestral sword of the Dragon Lords or whatever.
Yeah.
Just for that far off panic.
Yeah, the only thing that's going to stop the end of the world again.
That is, and the thing is, that's entirely down to the fact that David is my freaking DM. It's the fear of I'm hoarding all the things I've got in case they are relevant somehow.
Oh, I absolutely love this. I mean, you know, you are a Winthrop now. There's a chance that you could put like a little charge in the bottom of that sword, and it means that you can use it. It becomes a lightsaber. Who knows? The possibilities for you now are endless, sir.
I actually did have to think the other day. I was walking to work, and I was just thinking, man, Guy's got quite high dex, hasn't he, actually? And he doesn't like being in the fray too much. Oh my gosh, why have I not made him like a range? Why has he not picked up a crossbow somewhere? So he's definitely getting hold of a crossbow or something. Because I was just like, why has he never thought to do this before? Oh my gosh, that's the perfect weapon for him.
And like, it kind of makes sense because he doesn't run into a fight. He does use all of his magic from a distance. So yeah, why has he not got a ranged weapon?
Exactly, and I think that's exactly right. Because like that's the thing. Guy's working it out. Because I didn't want a character who knew exactly what he was great at. I didn't want like an awesome knight who like knew how to do martial dueling and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And it's what like doubly makes it hilarious is how well you rolled for your stats.
Yeah.
If Gaius, the character, put his mind to it, he probably could like absolutely kick butt in a martial contest. But
Yeah.
like obviously, like he's even figuring out. It's almost like the character isn't aware of what their strengths and weaknesses are, and that is an amazing thing to play.
Yeah, that's really interesting because
Yeah.
you know you're talking at it from a a stat perspective. The charisma, specifically in like the early bits, wasn't that high. So was that?
No.
I don't think we should get. I don't want to know all of your secrets, but I have also been slightly distracted by Karen, who is in the Zoom right now. We mentioned earlier about baby Orin and baby Gaius together, and she just posted in the chat, "Ask and you shall receive." I really hope this shows up on the Instagram because it's freaking adorable.
amazing,
It's so good. How have you knocked that out? Is this how long we've been chatting that you are able to create magic? Oh wow,
That's amazing. Yeah, check it
really
out on
good.
all the
Oh my
social
gosh,
medias.
that is genius.
yeah, right.
Oh, so good, mate. Oh, wow.
Yeah, all you listeners, this is great listening entertainment. Please go to the Instagram where you will hopefully find this picture.
Yeah,
It is
we'll
worth
put all
it.
of the links over to it. All of the links.
So good. Thank you so much for answering my really long question there, Chris, and giving me a little bit more detail as well. Next up, we have a question for David. It's from @RevRossMichael. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Who has asked, at the time travel table, Juna suggested travelling forward a week or a year before Orin settled on one day. As DM, how would you have handled it if they'd gone for a longer amount of time than just 24 hours? And there has been a note here that says that Tiamat Dangerblade also asked a similar question to this on Discord.
Mhm. So, I hadn't made huge amounts of decisions when they were at the table as to what it was going to look like if they activated it. Beyond the fact that if they activated it, what they would actually see is a vision of the future, but lived out in real time. I'd made that decision. What was going to come next, I had not decided. Mostly because I almost expected them to do like a 10 minutes or like maybe an hour. But the first suggestion was, let's jump forward a year. And I was like, oh, okay, what?
No.
I don't have plans for this. But largely in my head, the point of the table, if like, and it's kind of then what played out in the extra day that they had, is that they were going into almost like a hard difficulty for whatever came next. It's like they'd flicked a switch and like they're playing a much more difficult version of the game. Mostly so that they knew that if they went through a certain series of choices, that something bad would happen. And so they should make the opposite series of choices or like choose something else. That's just always something really fun to play with these like time travel shenanigans of like seeing the darkest timeline. Everyone wants to know what the worst thing could have been.
Yeah.
So why not just show them that?
So if anything, it's actually quite nice then that they did silly things in that time as well, just to make it easier.
Exactly, yeah. Sort of obviously, like once they'd activated it, we then had a little bit of time. They activated in episode 7, and like the full 24 hours doesn't end until the end of episode 8. But it gave me just enough time to like think out like bad options. If they had gone into the forest, for example, they might have been able to learn some of Kral's plan, and then like it would have obviously then brought them back to the thing, so they knew what he was going to do, and it would have given them more time to explore the town and stop that. But no matter what, I was always going to make it difficult for them. And if they had gone a full year, I would have essentially just been gunning for Orin the whole time because it was his vision. He would have.
Oh, he would have
suffered.
died. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If he dies, then it would have brought him back. So. No, like I would have given them some information and then basically killed Orin off rather than killing other characters off.
A random lightning bolt streams from the sky.
Yeah, suddenly every encounter. Why are the enemies always just attacking Orin? He stood right at the back. That's what it could have turned into.
I mean, it's a really interesting concept, though. Like, if you'd been trying to kill him, but hadn't really managed, to the point where you start getting listeners being like, he really seems to be gunning for the artificer here. Like, what's going on? And they get like the other side of the lake. They keep traveling north. They deal with the first thing for the Arcanist Consortium, and then you're like, oh shit, it's been a year. Okay, you're back in Tillisham.
Yep.
Have fun. And Orin would be the only one that would remember it as well.
if Orin had somehow survived all of the things that I would have been throwing his way, then we would have had no choice but to play out a full year.
Wow.
Or my little brain would have been coming up with some other completely random explanation as to why the table didn't work. That seems more of a cop out though, is to like. So yeah, I would have thrown them back. I would have shown them loads of bad things, thrown them back, and then made them decide what to do with all of the information coming their way.
Great question.
Yeah,
That's
really
really
good question. I'm also now thinking like this actually opens up a chance for you to do parallel tangent universes within the same world, that have the same characters but completely different events. Like you say, they could play through this game and then, they finish it. Now you play on hard mode or expert mode or...
Yeah. Yeah. This is what happens if Krell won. If Krell got to his table and got it back.
You know what? I kind of want to see a universe where, like, an empowered Krell goes up against, like, whatever the Wingthrups have got against, and, like, all the rest of them. Can you imagine that? Just, like...
all of the mages against each other.
The darkest timeline, and all the, like, big baddies are all just going against each other.
Yeah.
Like, if these adventurers had not existed, so you have to play as, like, either a Krell or a member of the Consortium or a Wingthrup or something like that and deal with, like, all the horrors going on around you. I'm really looking forward to No Small Roles Divination Table Reboot. That will be Season 2.
Reloaded.
Amazing. Really, really good question there. Thank you so much for that one. Let's go back to Superfan Pippa, who this time has a question for Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hey.
I have a music-related question for you. Surprise, surprise. One of my favourite things about Gaius is his brilliant popular music and musical theatre songs references. What do you think his dream musical theatre role would be, or which tribute act could you see him fronting?
Oh my gosh. Wow.
What a question.
That is a great question. I mean,
it's really cool. That's good.
So many. Oh my gosh. Would he not just make a great, what's his name from Chicago, the lawyer, who's like, give 'em the old razzle dazzle.
Yes.
I mean, my mind went straight away to Jesus from Jesus Christ Superstar because he's such an egotist. But at the same time, I think like the razzle dazzle
he'd want to play the biggest roles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Could I play all of them at once? No, I think it would be that guy.
Gaius doing one man Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah. Oh
Amazing.
my god. There we go. See.
Yeah. I mean, he's a dead hand for Guys and Dolls as well. You've got
the accent down.
Yeah.
I mean, down is a very liberal term. Again, to our American listeners, I'm not technically doing an American accent. I'm doing an accent from El Tempere, so it's technically accurate. But no, I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I think if I'm honest with you, Pippa, the musical would probably be that role.
Billy Flynn, that's his name.
Billy Flynn. Billy Flynn would be definitely there. And as for like a tribute act, it's got to be Meatloaf.
Oh wow, yeah,
yes. And I would do anything for love, while everyone else is dying around him. And I would do anything for love. Heal me, but I won't do that. For God's sake, guy, heal me.
I mean, there's a Meatloaf musical, isn't there?
Oh, Bats Out of Hell, yeah.
Bats Out of Hell.
That's it, yes.
That is a musical I need to go see, because my gosh.
Same. Apparently, it is mad.
I can imagine.
Yeah, something that David Knight might have concocted.
Oh, don't put me near that. It's fine. It's fine if I'm not connected to that.
He's got his own world. That is such a good question, Piffa. That's brilliant.
That was a really solid one. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. That's made my day.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Keep throwing them at me. I love it. Any excuse to get some musical theatre references in there. I love it.
Okay, let's have another one. This is from Matt Goes About. This one is for David. David, why do you hate horses?
Okay, so again, I'm going to explain this. Matt plays in the same campaign, that very long campaign with me and Vicky. All right, very good friends. There have been some horse deaths in that game as well.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, I want to explain this very thoroughly, that they rode two horses into a battlefield.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I had already kidnapped those horses from them for an extended period of time. But then when I had redelivered the horses to them, they then rode them into battle and got on with the fight, but left the horses stood in the middle of the battle.
Yeah, that's kind of
so
fair.
I let a Frankenstein version of an old player character beat those horses to death.
No!
Because I thought it was probably better to kill the horses than to kill another player character.
Yeah.
But obviously, they won't accept that I was doing it for their own good. I killed two loved pets of theirs. I understand this. I'm very sorry. But again, with Bessie, I was not in control of that. They led Bessie onto a small ship. I just knew there was going to be a fight on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely loads of other things that could have happened in that fight. Unfortunately, the unstable elemental stayed within the confines of the ship, mostly to keep it away from everyone. They were actually very clever, and like for 3 or 4 rounds, it stayed at the far end. It didn't get a chance to attack. So actually, it could have been a lot worse. It could have gone for Bessie much quicker. In which case, yeah, sure, it would have been my fault.
I mean, it was Enkidu, wasn't it?
It was Enkidu. Though to be fair to Enkidu, the following explosion from the elemental would have done the same thing. Like that got everyone, and that would have unfortunately also killed Bessie. Chris was doing an amazing job of role playing Bessie as a panicked horse.
Really faithful. It was brilliant.
Yeah, Bessie isn't a war horse. She never was. Like she was just some old guy's horse.
Yeah.
We love her dearly, but untrained animals in the middle of fights is always a bad idea in D&D.
Yeah.
Any D&D players out there, please keep your pets away from the battlefield.
Yeah.
Yes,
that is the only advice that I can give to you, is that we DMs will not hurt your pets if they are not targets. Keep them tied up and away.
It's so true. Like there's no...
It's an unfortunate thing of it.
There's no... At the end of the day, if you're in a role-playing game and you're in a life or death situation and you're on a horse, someone's going to go at that horse. If you've got, a lovable dog that is, in a wizard's laboratory and something smashes and blows up, that dog ain't going to survive. It's not like the plot armor. I always disagree with the idea of plot armor.
Mm-hmm.
I think keep that for Disney films. The rest of it is like, it makes it more gritty, more realistic, more fun.
The only extra plot armor that bringing a horse into a battlefield gives is that, yes, again, they are another target. So if the choice is between hurting a player character or hurting the pet, sometimes narratively, not to use narrative as an excuse, but it is almost nicer to target the pet, because then the player character can carry on and also have experienced something traumatic. Not saying that all D&D character growth needs to be related to trauma. There's very many nice things that can happen in D&D. But if it avoids a player character death, but gives them something to, like, a takeaway from the fight, then it's sometimes a good story option.
Yeah, I did.
It's not a good feeling. It's never a good feeling, but it is a good story option.
Liar.
Did something very similar in my game where there was one character who was like standing on top of the horses, like, straddling 2 horses' backs or something, and this bandit captain like ran straight up. And had a choice of like hitting him or the horse, and his AC at the time was very, very low. I was like, right, okay, if this guy hits him, it would probably kill him. So I was like, okay, he just runs up and he's gonna he's gonna shunt the horse. You should have seen the rage on the players' faces of just, this guy needs to die now. Like literally stopped all the fighting that they were doing with other people and targeted the horse hater.
Yeah, I mean, and again, there is something to be said about stories and in films and things that, like, if the animals get hurt, people react so much more to that than if, like, a person gets hurt. It's very weird, strange, isn't it?
Oh my gosh! Like, spoiler alert! But when like in Deathly Hallows, where like Hedwig dies.
Yeah.
When I was preparing myself for that book, I was like, I think Hagrid's gonna die. He's the one that like introduced Harry to the world. I went through in my head. I prepared myself mentally for every single character to die. The one character I did not run through the scenario of was Hedwig, and when it did, it crippled me.
It does. It again, maybe, and this kind of ties back to the whole like Wingthrup cruelty. Maybe there is it's easier to be empathetic to an animal because they have less, I don't want to say less control over themselves, but they don't have the stakes that a humanoid character has. They don't have those same kind of like thought processes and things. So quite often the animal characters are brought into situations completely against their control. It's a lot easier to be empathetic toward them and to attach. Plus quite often they're cute and people like obviously give them such love that when then something happens to them, the protector instincts kicked in and it has a much more emotional effect. But yeah, again, it doesn't mean it's nice ever.
I don't feel that way about artificial familiars. To which end, I'm like,
I feel like Aggie all the time. She just gets rebuilt.
I know. I'm like, everyone's like, oh, Aggie. I'm like, Aggie is useful, but I don't feel for Aggie in that way. Sorry, Ben. I'm like, Aggie is super useful as a tool.
But I did feel, I did have a question here that was a follow-up that was like, in fact, why do you hate all animals? Because what you did to all of the animals from the fuzzy ball bag, what you did to the horse,
again,
and now what you're doing
fighters.
in the whole like Winthrop, yes, we use animals. And I mean, particularly the imagery of it being a lightning hedgehog. It kind of like, I got Pikachu vibes from that, but I also got Sonic. I was seeing Sonic the Hedgehog in a ball, and then you disintegrated him. Yeah.
I mean, it was just to add to the point of it. I almost purposefully chose cute creatures, hedgehogs, chaffinches, like little fairies. Again, to highlight the fact that they were innocent. They're like completely innocent creatures in this situation. So I'm sorry. I hope the story explains itself, but I'm sorry.
You evil, evil man.
Yeah.
It's also that these guys can seem more heroic, though, so somebody has to go there. Guys, I think we have time for one more question, and aptly it is for both of you. So this is from Shanomaniac, who has asked, at the end of this adventure, and at the beginning of the next, who would make the best replacement DM? And what kind of character would David like to create? So I'm going to ask the first bit to Chris first, and then we'll come to David. You got a little bit of time to think about this one.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, who do you reckon would make the best DM out of the five of you?
Okay, so I think it's tough. Again, it's a question that has to be answered with a complex answer rather than like a simple straightforward. I think it's all down to like what kind of game you want to play. I think for like person who knows the rules and is like most equipped, I definitely think like Ben is like up there, and he's also hilarious with voices. So he'll make some really like wonderful NPCs. There'll be a lot of like complex narratives from Daryl. I've never heard Grace DM, and I'd really enjoy that as well, just for the comic relief as well, and just to see what bonkers things bounce around in her brain. I've got to say, I really want to like see what Vicky comes up with in terms of a for a one shot. I would love that. So it's a really hard question, mate. It's a really, really hard question.
It's like that. It's five very different, but all very brilliant different forms of story that you'd be getting from every single cast member.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We've had a little bit of experience with Ben DMing, and
I've had the pleasure of having Chris, Ben, and Daryl.
And Daryl, and Daryl's was like
DMing.
Lore, like this grandeur world. It's kind of like Enkidu in a world. It was the way that I kind of pictured this. It was so like his detail was insane. Oh god, but which one would work best to follow No Small Roles? That's what I don't know.
Gosh, who knows?
I think season 2 you just have to alternate. So it's like Chris does the first episode, and then Vicky does the second episode, and Ben does the third one, which basically means that you have to scramble and pick up from where it was left off. And then you get to Vicky's episode, which is all about pixies and stuff, and then Daryl comes in and he's like, no, okay, we have to find some way of getting back to the world with all these, massive
trying
glorious
to make
kingdoms
the pixies make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, Vicky's would be like full-blown dark evil. I don't know. No, that's the point, though. I think for me, I can guess what everyone's is. Vicky's, I have no frigging clue. So I am like down for that. Like, it's a blank page that I want to see what happens.
The energy that Vicky would bring to it, like,
absolutely.
You, like, as players, I don't feel we'd know what would be coming at any point.
Sometimes we don't know what comes in, like, Juna. Sometimes she's just like, no, I just think, and then sometimes you're like, rah! And we'll be like, oh my gosh, like,
I'd love it.
Absolutely.
I think the only way to really settle this is that you're going to have to test it. I mean, before season 2 comes around, you're going to have to test it. I'm thinking bonus episodes where you each run one and we see how it goes within the world of El Timpo, potentially. Doesn't have to be. Basically, give me more stuff to listen to. I need more.
Yeah.
We're slowly working on it. We just need more time. More editing time, please. Thank you very much. Cheers and thank you.
Speaking of having more time, did you think of a character that you would want to create?
Yes. So I have the type of player characters that I've played in the past have been very varied. I often lean toward spellcasters, but what I think I'd quite like to explore is a kind of anti-hero type character who is tied to one other person in the party and is really only there for them. Like, almost does not care about the greater mission, but is there for that one person and will protect them at all costs, follow where they go. Yeah, that's maybe a kind of healer character who, again, almost prioritizes healing for just that one person and not anybody else. I feel like that'd be a really fun archetype to play. And that, like, what is their buying to the whole mission, the whole campaign? But obviously they've got a love, a need to protect this one other person.
That one other person has to be a horse, I feel, just for poetic justice.
or a griffin.
Just so I can feel that.
Shout out to the subclass that you've recently created, the Paladin subclass.
Yeah. Oath of the Rider.
Based on Juna's, the Griffin Rider Paladins and the Oath of Tuvir. Brilliant stuff.
By the way, can we just do a tiny round of applause for Vicky for those beautiful stories she keeps throwing out there?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
absolutely. Love them.
We'll add applause sound effect there.
Juna just reading Grimm's fairy tales. Like, I'd listen to that podcast. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Amazing. I think that might be all we've got time for tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions, for sending them in. Really sorry if we didn't get a chance to get to them tonight. We did segue a little bit, but I hope you'll agree with me that it was fascinating. Really wanted to explore those avenues. For anybody who has listened this far, if you haven't liked and subscribed to the podcast, please do, because it helps other people find the podcast and fall in love with it as we have. And please do join us next time. So for now, from David and Chris, I hope you've enjoyed tonight.
Yeah,
loved it. So much fun.
Well, I can't wait to get you in the hot seat again once we've had a few more episodes to find out what the hell is going on. Thank you so much, everybody. And there's only one thing left to say, so if everybody would like to unmute themselves. Are we ready?
Anan.
Hello, tea cakes. Ben here, popping in to say a huge thank you to David, Chris, Superfan Sam, and to all the superfans from Patreon who joined us live. Thank you for all of your fantastic questions, and keep those inquisitive minds active, because our next No Small Questions will be with our staff-wielding, tea-brewing sorcerer Vicky, and our eldritch-blasting, inside-checking warlock Daryl. Keep an eye on our social media for when we'll be recording the next episode. Oh, and while you're there, make sure you have a look at Keren's adorable illustration of Baby Guy and Baby Orin. You know where we are by now. We're at No Small Roles on Instagram and Twitter, or find us on Facebook by searching for No Small Roles. If you've finished admiring Keren's amazing art and you feel in need of some more No Small Roles in your life, why not consider joining our Patreon, which is simply bursting with behind-the-scenes and bonus content. Recent additions have included insight from David on the very first music he composed for the podcast, a video from Daryl on the inspiration for Enkidu's fighting style, and a bonus No Small Talk episode, with the cast's immediate reaction recorded right after episode 33. Check out all those goodies at patreon.com/no-small-roles. Oh, and we'll pop a link in the show notes as well. Oh, and while you're looking there, you should also spot a link for the show that I'm performing in this summer. Yes, I'm heading out on tour with Dragons and Mythical Beasts, where audiences will get to enter into a world of myths and legend in this fantastical show for all the family. It's a great opportunity to meet some creatures of legend, from a colossal stone troll to an adorable unicorn, all brought to life with spectacular puppetry. We'll be visiting venues all around the UK from late July right through to November. And from 13th of August to 5th of September, we'll be performing at Regent's Park Open Air Theatre in London. You can find out all about the show and book tickets for your nearest venue at dragonsandbeastslive.com. Hope to see you there. Now, we'll be back in the Wingthrups test facility next Sunday with episode 37, and in the meantime, look out for another instalment of Superfan Chats as our resident superfans recap and discuss theories all the way up to episode 36. Right, sounds like I've got to go and plan campaign 2 of No Small Roles, and on for now.
Hi, this is Benjamin from the UK true crime podcast They Walk Among Us. Brought to you by AMC Networks, Shudder is a premium streaming experience that provides a multi-sensory dive into fantastical worlds, offering the very best of old and new horror. Discover films and series that covers the entire horror spectrum, including highly anticipated new releases like The Boy Behind the Door and Psycho Gorman, to giants of the horror genre like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween. What's more, you can watch one of my all-time favourite films, Mandy, a spiralling, surreal, bloody journey of revenge with visuals that are simply mind-blowing. Exceptional originals, movies, TV series and live events, there's always something new and unexpected for Shudder members to experience. Sign up at shudder.com.